Alright, I'm here. What's up? Whew. Alright, I'm powering through this shit. I'm here, but I am an absolute husk of a human being right now. Ugh. I wonder if we should get the healers on again to see, like, it's easy with Dorky. Dorky ranked all the tanks. But, like, the healers seem like they're a little, undecided. Why is Prez so good? It's bad at Mythic Plus and PvP. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand how a healer could be good in a 20-man rating environment and then maybe not be as good in a 5-man Mythic Plus or a 3-man PvP environment, right? Like, that's just two different things. You're a little quiet. Yeah, I'm giving it all I got. My mic's up all the way, so. Uh, yeah. Okay, Kyrasis sent me a book about blood decay. I'm not going to read all of this. Or maybe I will, but I'm not going to read it all out on stream. Love the passion, though. Did you do DPS yet? Yeah, we're starting DPS today. I'm only going to be able to get like halfway through it, maybe. My mom gets here at 4, which is in 2.5 hours. I think her flight was slightly delayed. And then I have to drive to LAX, right? So that's like... Actually, let's see how long that's going to take today. Maybe it won't be that much traffic. Yeah, it's not going to be that bad. Like 30 minutes. I probably leave at 4. I probably can do like 2.5 hours of this. Can hopefully get half done and do half tomorrow. I say this while knocking on wood, but I hope I do not feel as bad tomorrow as I do today. Start with EU dudes? Yeah, I will. Yeah, I got someone who reached out to me for Ret. So we have that. Do them in order of your favorite to least favorite. Yeah, honestly, I probably just got to get started. Usually do a little yapping beforehand, but... Ranged melee or mix? We can just mix it. We don't have to do one or the other. It's fine. Let me start messaging some people. The beard is looking mighty. Alright, it's getting chopped off tomorrow. I'm having my first, like, Race to World first shoots on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I have to be looking normal. I'm very efficient with my haircuts. I only get haircut and beard trim when something is important, where I'm about to be like on screen, where I care about it. So like film or photo shoots. Um, yeah, we'll try to get some EU guys. All right, so I'm just warning you guys right now. If I don't seem super enthused today, I'm gonna try my best, you know. But if I feel like I'm fading a little bit, uh, if I'm not talking as much, I'm trying. You know, I'm just extremely low energy right now and not feeling very well. Just tell people to get to the point. Nah, that's the last thing I want to do actually. Okay. So talk to Kalmazi. The illness is going around everywhere right now. Bro, I don't think I've ever been sick twice in 30 days in my entire life. Ever. I get sick like once a year, and it's like some bitch ass cold for like 3 days. Dude, I have been sick 3 times in the last 30 days. Insane. The fuck is wrong with me, man? Hope I'm immune to literally everything by the time race comes around. Low rolled crazy. Yeah. Could do soon. Let me see if Kalmazi's ready. And then I played hockey this morning, which was, in hindsight, really not smart. But I played pretty good, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, I don't think that was a good idea. The exercise while sick kind of blows. I felt great when I was playing. It was just afterwards, you could tell that my body just gave it whatever it had. And now I'm just like completely out of gas, which is not smart. All right. I'm just going to keep messaging people until someone's like ready to come on right now. Tazenak is usually my goat, so can't have anyone in my guild talk, obviously. Um, uh, Max, I've been reading Twitter threads from people mourning the loss of their AI partner. Yeah, I'm sorry if I put that shit on your feed. I actually cannot fucking believe that. Actually cannot believe it. Basically, if you haven't been following it or you didn't read about this before, there was like an old model of ChatGPT called 4.0 that was like extremely empathetic. And basically a lot of people um like were dating their AI like for real. And then they announced that they were like deprecating uh some old models, and that was one of them, and it was fucking wild, bro. The response to the tweet was crazy. People were acting like they lost a loved one. People were holding vigils during the last minutes before it was deprecated and saying goodbye to their partners and stuff. It's actually like Black Mirror as fuck. It's insane. Mental illness. I'm sure there's some mental illness in there, but also I think it's just like vulnerable people that are looking for like some kind of connection. It is genuinely sad for those people, right? Like I'm not making fun of them. More than anything, it's just crazy that it is happening at all, right? It just like sounds so dystopian. Okay, so Taznak's good in 5 to 10. J Funk's good at some point. Kalamazzi said he needs like some time. Rep Paladin said he needs 15 to 20. Azertharian says he might be around tomorrow, but he's not around right now. Yeah. Let's slam Kalamazzi. Hello?
Morning. Hello.
Morning. Um, I'm
Should
here.
know that I climbed out of bed 5 minutes ago just because you texted me or
Really?
DM'd me.
Wait, where do you
Yes,
live?
sir.
Like what kind time zone?
I'm in Florida. It's 5 p.m.
Yeah, that's wow, dude. That's crazy, degen. I thought you were like you were a like balanced adult, you know?
Balance. There's a lot of things that can go into balance, right? But well, you know, it's okay. I was watching TikToks for an hour in bed, so I'm here now.
Oh, extra degenerate. Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can start with whatever spec you want. Which one do you want to start with?
Okay, so I will admit I haven't looked at the list very much
It
this
doesn't
last couple
matter. No
days,
no
but
DPS have been ranked yet at all. All you can I
okay.
mean, you'd basically be ranking them relative to where tanks and healers are, but honestly that's like not really relevant. So,
Yeah,
um
okay.
let's
Okay.
which one do you want to start with?
We can start with Demonology.
Well,
Two
before you
of
do
me.
that, before you like start cooking on Demo, I just want to ask you the first thing straight up. I know Demo was one of the most affected classes initially by the pruning. Like I know one of the initial rotations was like straight up some Burning Crusade Shadowbolt for a minute type shit. Is that still the case? And if so or if not, like how what has your reaction been to the pruning for that class? Like what did it end up as?
Yeah, I mean, Demonology, there were some cool things initially, but it was pretty rough. You were limited on a lot of stuff, like how many pets you could summon. We lost like a pretty good bit of buttons and all that. There was a lot of feedback given on that, like week 2 or 3 of alpha, and they came in and changed like basically everything. Uh, Gave us a few more buttons back, like manually summing in a Doom Guard. Gave us second kick, which is pretty cool, which is a button and like a pet that does damage as well. So I think Demonology landed in a pretty fun, solid spot.
Wow, okay.
Uh,
A lot of other classes can't say the same. Like some of the classes that got pruned are still just like aggressively dog shit.
yeah, not to spoil too much. I think Warlock is probably one of the more fun range you should look at playing, like for midnight, if you're looking at like an altar or main or something. But we'll get into that,
Did they
So
make movement feel good? I know that's always a concern.
they made it a little better, I guess. In a sense, they made like our Dreadstalkers. It's not super in-depth instant cast and free resources all the time. So there's a handful of spells you can cast and move. Demo's already sort of mobile, depending how you had cores and stuff. It feels pretty decent, I'd say, yeah.
Okay. Um, you can go ahead and rank it for Mythic Plus, or actually, you know what? Fuck that. Tell me some things you feel like still need to get changed about Demo you're not happy about.
I Okay, so the question for this ranking is this taking into consideration the nerfs that came in 2 days ago? So those are the
Yeah.
pre-patch, but they're coming to beta. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
so we might have to alter this because like usually for the expansion ones, it's much easier on patches because things are already much more set in stone, but like there's literally like a month until the actual season comes out. There's going to be more tuning. Stuff that's OP is going to get nerfed, right? Stuff that sucks is going to get buffed. So we will probably and I will give you the chance to like amend this at a future date, but for now all you can do is going based off the tuning that exists right now.
Okay. Um, yeah, I guess if you want to change a couple things for or a thing for Demo, I think there's our new Apex talent is a very large portion of our damage. It basically changes how the spec plays and what talents you choose to a certain extent. Like once the expansion hits, it's very RNG. It reminds me a bit of like Aberrus, like a couple expansions ago, where sometimes you had just insane nuke damage, and sometimes you were like, if you scuffed it, you were just sort of eh. Like you can roll one of four pets, and sometimes the certain pets that come out, two of them are really strong, the other two are pretty rough.
Okay.
They nerfed all four pets by half a couple days ago, but the problem is two of the four suck. The other two are really good. They probably should revert that nerf and nerf the two really good ones, and probably buff the pretty bad ones. So it's still gonna be super swingy,
Hmm.
but
I wonder if that's intentional. Like I feel like what I've heard Warlock say before is like they'll be like, I got a Doom Guard or whatever, and they're just basically referring to like the best pet that you could get in the past. I've heard that, and it's like I feel like they have to kind of be unbalanced for you to ever be hyped that you got the good one. So I wonder if that's an intentional design thing, because it wouldn't it be like, even though in the sake of balance and no RNG, you'd love that like gameplay wise, but if they're all like the same power, you don't actually think about it at all, and it's just passively happening. What do you think about that?
I mean that could be a thing. Like funny enough, two of the four pets you summon, it's the Shadow and Fire Lady from Sunwell, the Aerodar twins. You literally summon them, but those two are the ones that suck. They're really bad. But it's cool seeing them because like Fire and Shadow Mommy are here, so it's like hmm.
Yeah.
But it could be, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind some level of like smoothing it out. 'Cause, like sometimes one of the pets is like 18% of my damage. Sometimes it's like three. That's both the case for the Apex talent and like one of the hero talents for Soul Harvester. There's a crazy amount of RNG in them. But yeah, it could be. I could see it being that way too a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, some people in chat are like, who cares about getting hyped mid rotation? Bro, you guys never like have your cooldowns come up and you get like your RPPM trinket to proc and you get like the best possible RNG and you're just like, holy fuck, I'm slamming. I feel like that's like what sets WoW rotate, or you get a bunch of procs or something. Like, I feel like that's what sets WoW rotations apart from, you know, like the Final Fantasy style where it's just like the same thing over 5 minutes for most specs in the game. I don't know. I feel like that shit owns. You don't want like all of it. You don't want like your like Hunter last year, right? Like Hunter, if you were looking at like single target in the last phase of Dimensius, they were like topping by 20% of your next class, or they were like okay, right? Like that's the. I guess that's not super fun, but I don't know. I think a little bit of
That's what it is, sort of. Like it is a bit worrisome about like damage profiles and consistency. If you want like to meet a threshold or a check, sometimes you might not get that. Sometimes you might. It's pretty excessive when they proc a bunch, but I think some RNG is good. So I sort of, you know, agree with what you're saying. It's excessive right now,
bro
but
that
yeah.
feeling,
Curious anyway.
when like you're getting the crazy procs and you actually just it's an easy part of the fight and you actually just hard focus the damage meter because you're just ascending. That shit is like an unmatched feeling in other games. To be completely honest with you.
It's fair.
Okay, so where do you think Demo stands for raid?
This is okay. So this is all. So I'm the first DPS to go here. This is post nerf that came in 2 days ago.
Yeah,
Chat,
yeah.
everybody.
Which I want to
So
point out
demonology.
before you even speak. If chat ever makes a mistake in blaming, and I think you have been historically very accurate with your tier list rankings, I just want to say that. But if there's ever a disconnect between chat getting mad about a ranking and the person ranking it, it is a change that has happened that you have not seen in raid testing or beta dungeon keys yet. And most people in chat are like, I've watched keys for the last 2 weeks and this is what's been happening. But like, that's literally just old information. Like things have been nerfed since then. So telling chat preemptively you might be behind the information because usually the people saying this stuff is actually where you get the information from watching their streams or watching a stream of someone in their group. So
Yeah, you can't even test the changes that are coming yet because they're not on beta or PTR. It's just pure speculation, boring like basic math. But so Demonology for the raid, I think before these changes came in a couple of days ago, you'd put Demonology in crazy style before the changes came in. Demonology, Arcane, and a couple other specs were just busted, uh, overtuned by 15-20% probably. Post changes, it looks to be like a 15 to 18% nerf to Demonology. Super rough napkin math. I think it goes at A tier, probably on the higher end. I think it's probably still one of the better specs for the raid. There's, it's a weird, like, I think a bit of like a undermine tier where you have some stat cleave, but you have a bit of spread cleave too. If it's like spread cleave council based stuff, I, I mean, Demo's like not phenomenal at that, but like, if you can replicate that meat grinder like cleave kind of profile, I think it's probably like an A tier right now.
okay,
Um, yeah. Uh, but the TBD because it got blasted. Like, and there's a lot of RNG in the rotation. If the RNG is there and you high roll, it's gonna look really good. If the RNG is there and you low roll and it gets nerfed, it's gonna be like, well, what do you do? So, uh,
yeah. I mean,
but yeah.
it's hard
So,
for chat to like debate raid rankings anyway because like so much has changed since you've seen raid testing, and basically the only thing people in chat could ever guess about the power of a class is by seeing it currently in Mythic Plus, and Mythic Plus's profile versus raid is like completely different. Uh,
right.
So yeah, like you could have a class that's like really really good at that, but then there's no fights where that shines, and then like it's just not as good in raid. Or there's timings that
Mhm.
line up that are like perfect for your spec. All right, what about Mythic Plus?
Uh, I mean, it's weird because Demonology doesn't have like PI or Fort or Arcane Int or anything like insane
Yeah, no
utility, but it
raid
has
buff
second
sucks.
kick now. It has second kick now, and it has AoE curses, which actually is more relevant than it may
It
seem.
also has Hellstones and the occasional gate.
Right. The utility's definitely taken a step up. Uh, I mean, this is the one where it's hard to say because the nerfs that are coming in, we have to see. A lot of them were like to our AoE and cleave profiles with RNG mixed in. I I probably put it bottom of A tier with like a TBD on it. I think it's still good, but it's not as good as like classes that have a lot of damage and more utility that meshes with their group comp, right?
Yeah.
I'd leave it there and see what happens. I think it's pretty fair, honestly.
Okay, let's do Affliction. How did it turn out after the pruning, if anything?
Affliction didn't. Oh, after the pruning, people love. Well, okay, most really like Affliction having a unstable Affliction dot spender. Um, Rapture's gone. Most like that. Some don't, but most do. You as your spender in single target. You spam seed and AOE, and uh, I think it's really fun. I think they did a really good job cooking up a fun version of Affliction. There were some things early alpha that they changed. I think were a bit more exciting that we have now, but it's still pretty fun to play. It lost maybe a button or two, but it feels good. You have a button that has it's like CDR based, a cooldown CDR based on whenever you spend shards. Um, it feels fun. It feels like whenever you're hitting buttons, it's doing things. You're working towards bringing your cooldowns back faster, and it just feels good. The cast times feel solid. It probably could use some buffs in certain areas, like unstable affliction probably could use a buff. But I mean, if you're gonna do that, who knows? But I think overall, the playstyle is really fun. I think AF's one of the specs you need to look into to like, if you're looking at playing a caster, all I think AF is like really fun and definitely worth considering playstyle wise. So yeah,
Yeah. So basically, after the changes, you're a fan of the changes from the War Within to Midnight. You think they did a good job with Affliction.
pretty much yeah. I wish Dark Lair still extended dots, but that's a debate for some other time, and it is what it is. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Better than what we had the last few years for sure. Pretty fun.
Okay, sweet. Where does it end up in raid?
Uh, it's hard to say because it's based on like I mean, obviously it's based on what the fight looks like. There's some spread cleave fights where it could be pretty good, but obviously numbers are the end all. They so like 3 weeks ago, they Demonology was really good 3 weeks ago. Demonology and Affliction both play the same hero talent, which is Soul Harvester, and they came in and they hit Soul Harvester really hard like 2 3 weeks ago, which hit both Affliction and Demonology. When Affliction was good at that point, it wasn't like anywhere near how good Demonology was. Uh, and unfortunately, they probably should have hit more Soul Harvester towards Demonology and not both of them. because like a month before then they had buffed the crap out of Demonology for Soul Harvester specifically. I think Aft caught some strays basically. It was good, but it did not need to be hit as much as it was, I don't think. Uh I mean, it's probably lower end of B tier, I'd say at this point. Because you have Demonology being better in most spots, and it's sort of like a we need to buff UA a little bit and see where it goes kind of thing. But it's definitely fun to play. It's not bad, but I think if you're able to replicate like that stat cleave meat grinder a good bit in M plus, or sorry, in raid, you'll see Demonology way more than Affliction will. So I think it's probably mid to lower B plus at this point, or B, sorry.
Yeah, I have a mid of B.
Yeah,
What about Mythic
yeah.
Plus, or is it a Mythic Plus spec?
Oh, it's fun and plus. Yeah, it feels like Legion F a good bit with your spamming seeds, casting UAs. Who doesn't love spamming their seed? It's pretty good, and so don't laugh, Max. um, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's fun to play. Once again, like the nerfs hit it, and it's I put it probably higher into B tier, but it's not deep. I don't think it's demo level. And there's definitely classes that are better. Like I think even post nerf Arcane and probably Unholy and Demo are going to be a decent
Yeah,
bit better still.
Mythic Plus is weird because it's like Affliction. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Affliction was actually like an A tier Mythic Plus spec. But if it wasn't as good as Demo and you never played it in dungeons because it just wasn't the best Warlock spec, it would feel like a B, you know?
Right.
So I feel like
All,
by
yeah.
default, the second best spec in Mythic Plus, like low key, has to be like a tier below, even though that's not really how it works. But like in reality, that's like how getting invited to groups work, I think.
Right. Plus, like really, as far as the hero talents are concerned, Soul Harvester feels infinitely better to play than Hellcaller. Hellcaller has Soul Harvester basically has every 35 seconds a button you hit, which is reduced by casting UA or Seed that gives you 3 to 4 soul shards instantly, basically. Hellcaller doesn't have that. So you have like way more resource gen as Soul Harvester on demand. Hellcaller just says, I generate shards every so often. I think that if they're going to look at changing AF more like 12.1 or whatever, it's just too late, obviously in beta. Probably some ways you figured out to give Hellcaller a bit of on-demand shard gen or something. It just feels like night and day. You're playing two different specs entirely. Um, so
Yeah, I wonder
yeah,
if that's the goal. Like obviously, you'd never like to have one of your hero talents be way less fun than the other, but I think the idea of it feeling a lot different in general like is probably a good thing, right? Like I think like would it be worse if your two hero talents felt exactly the same, right? But obviously it's not good that it isn't fun
right.
like you're saying. So uh
Yeah.
all right, cool. Destro. How did Destro turn out?
That's where's the coffin dance? I don't know. This spec is so it's the same spec it's been for the last 20 years. Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, Rain of Fire, all that stuff. The capstones, I think, fundamentally all took a step back from where they were in Dragonflight or sorry, War Within. They're all sort of there still, but in different forms and like not anywhere near as fun. It's sort of like we made changes just to make changes because of new expansions here, and they're all just like, eh, like, uh, I don't know. It feels not very exciting to play. It feels the same as it's been for the last 20 years. Like Destro really didn't change at all. So I mean, like you might have gained or lost a button based on what ends up being good or bad in Sims, but it's the same. But if you're a Destro fan, great. If you're, hoping for something new in the spec, unfortunately, well, you're not really getting that. So I don't know. Like it's just, I hate to give that answer, but it's true.
Is
It's
it
just sort
not
of
fun
mid.
to play or is it bad or both?
Well, it's Destro's always fun for like an hour or two in raid, and then you're like, I wish I could do anything else in life right now. So I've hitting the same 3 buttons for the last 2 hours, and I have 4 hours in raid left or whatever. And it's just like there's not much. I mean, it depends. I think when Destro is the best spec in every fight in a raid tier, it is not as fun of a raid tier as it could be if you're playing Demo or Aft. That's opinion based, but I think it gets sort of old, bland, and generic. But it's also undertuned right now, which is a little like, eh. I don't want to sound like I'm too biased or whatever there. But I think what it comes down to is the capstones were fun and exciting and War Within and stuff, and they all are still there now, but in a different form, and it took away a lot of the fun and excitement of playing Destro. You don't have these instant cast, massive Soulfire procs anymore. You don't have your green Smolder on demon spawning in every 10 seconds anymore. You just have a minute cooldown on a long cast, and your green Smolder round's gone, and you have like a mid-tier talent that's a capstone now you don't play anywhere, and basically every capstone is just a passive. It's like increases mastery, increases crit, increases whatever, and they're all 2-point nodes.
Yeah. Oh,
It just feels bad.
really? That's in your spec tree?
A lot of them, the gates into the capstones are 2-point nodes. I think there's 3 we take that are 2 points. Might be 2. You spend like half your points getting through 2-point gates that are like increases crit, increases crit. It's boring. Yeah, it's
Didn't
not very
they
fun.
didn't they get rid of like a lot of the like most classes 2-point nodes in their spec tree just in general? Like they just destroyed them? Is warlock just the holdout?
I don't know because like the points that are 2-point talents in the capstones, like for Destro, used to be 1-point talents. They're made 2. It's Devastation and Ruin, like the skull on the far left and right there.
Am I
In the
looking at the wrong
spectrum,
thing?
yeah. No, you're good. It's like third row from the bottom, basically.
Oh,
Up
I
on
see.
the
It like
yeah,
gates you into. Yeah, usually when they do that, it's like they don't want you to have too many capstones. And the reason that's there is to like get you from that. But yeah, it does feel bad. Okay, I thought you meant like the
right.
stuff at the bottom was too, which is like
No, but it like leads into other ones that are just like passive, like I have 3% more mastery, or I have more mastery, or I have more XYZ. And they added some 2-point nodes on the top of the tree, like backlash and stuff. It just sort of ended up being a little like we have what we have in War with them, but it's just a watered down version, if that makes sense. Which is a bit unfortunate. So we lost a lot of thematics, I feel like, as well. But
okay.
yeah.
All right,
So
where does it end up in raid? Is it ever played?
uh in its current form, I don't think so. There are some spread cleave fights that look pretty decent for Destro, but I mean, I was playing this on Salhadar last testing this in the message. Dude, I'm above the tank. Like, brother, I mean,
Bro,
this is pre.
Saladar is legit like the most prototypical Destro fight. It's like Raden, right? Like you're just always
Yeah.
hitting a boss and a big ball that needs to die. Like that's should be good.
That's what I'm saying. I should be good there, but it felt terrible. They buffed it a good bit the last 2 weeks, but they've buffed the filler spells, and the fillers are like less than 10% each, and they've been like 10% buffs. We need to buff Chaos Bolt, and not buff or just buff the fillers. I think this goes C tier, honestly. Like you can put it top of C tier or higher end of C tier, but it's not gonna see any play. I don't think at this point in the raid.
Yeah.
AF is better. AF feels more exciting to play, and it needs help. We need to buff Chaos Bolt. Capstones are a later on thing. It's too late for those, but it just feels sort of mid, lesser than mid. And yeah.
All right, what about M plus?
So if you know the Psychic Link change log meme,
Yeah.
you might. Blackened Soul is approaching that. That is a
What is that?
ability for Hellcaller. It's basically like our Hellcaller hero talent that changes our immolate to Wither. It gains stacks and ticks down and does damage. It gets buffed or nerfed every single other week. It feels like it was buffed for like, I think like 22 weeks ago. It was nerfed by 30 this week. That's what fuels our big AOE, and it got nerfed by 30. Destro was doing a lot of damage in AOE. It was really good with Hellcaller, like up until this week on beta, but a single target's abysmal. So it's been the same way it is for the last 10 years. You bring it like for mass AoE, but its single target has been worse than what it has been the last few expansions. So I'm after the nerf, it's hard to say because like there's a lot of good AoE classes and stuff, but they also got hit. I don't think it's very good. It was the least played of all 3 specs in M plus. It's probably like I probably put it C tier as well, just because you have AF and Demo that are better in M plus, I think, and yeah, I think it probably goes C tier
Yeah, I mean,
as
I
well.
think even without the elaboration, if it's the third best spec in Mythic Plus, it just makes sense that it's a tier below the second one too.
Yeah, so
All right, hell
where
yeah.
it goes.
Thanks for your time, bud.
Of
Yep,
course,
love you. Bye. Shit on. All right, let me see if this ret's ready. Get ret out of the way, and then we can either do Hunter, DK, or Enhance. Although I think we would have to do Enhance pretty quickly because he has to go. Yo, what's up?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, tell me how Rhett's feeling. How are your how is the feeling after like the Crusader strike change, the general prune? Although I don't
Oh
think it got
god.
pruned too much, but like what's the gameplay like?
Yeah, so I think last time I was pretty hyped on the talk. And yeah, the hype kind of died down. Red just didn't get any good changes during the whole like beta cycle that we had.
Yeah.
Like the design is still decent, it looks solid, but the tuning is horrible as always somehow. Obviously, there's still hope, but given Red's tuning history, it's just likely a repetition of what happened before. So the giga hype we had from the design kind of died down, especially because we didn't really get anything. Overall, there were some like good changes to how our Apex talent works. It now procs from Art of War, and they also like reintroduced Crusading Strikes back again, which is hilarious in hindsight because there was a clear reason why they wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. I
And
loved playing without it. Is it positive, or do you feel like it plays pretty bad?
It plays horrible.
Yeah.
It's hilariously bad. Like they had first they added a version which I think was like either 100 or 50% slower attack, which just like you were literally hitting something every 3 seconds with melee attack. Like imagine that.
Yeah,
your character just doesn't do anything.
It really sucks that they got rid of it too, because like wasn't there logic behind it, or I don't even know if they stated this, but was it because you kind of wanted like a swing timer via some kind of add-on, and like they were
You did.
and so that's why they killed it, because they thought that would have been bad for default UI.
Yes, and then they reintroduced Crusading Strikes, and they made it a trackable buff. So now you have the same thing again, but with the default UI. So you can track it as a swing timer again, basically.
All right, well that stinks.
Yeah. And also, like, they changed its value several times. So, like, I know we talked about Psychic Link. Kalamazi talked about Psychic Link. I want to mention that again. They changed Crusading Strikes, I think, like 4 times in that time, or 3 times, which is just absurd, considering everything.
Yeah.
And right now, it looks to be the better choice, too. So we're just back to playing it again. Like, it's not even, like, the choice, for the roleplay gamers or just someone who doesn't want to think about much, just passively get holy power, strike enemies, whatever.
Okay, and then part of your viability I don't think dungeons this really matters as much, because I don't think devotion aura is something you need. But in raid it is. And do you find yourself do you think Ret has a chance to be that, or do you think it has no chance?
I actually think with the recent changes to Holy Paladin, Red has absolutely no chance of making it into a competitive or optimized comp. No.
Well, what do you mean by that? Like the ones super recently that or do you mean
yeah.
Or do you mean like the general changes to whatever that cone ability they used to have that's now not a cone?
Yeah, like the design in general. Like Holy Paladin looks like it's gonna be in the comp. I know you can't say anything about that, but like for the general idea, I think Holy Paladin just brings too much into the comp that you want to have it for sure. At least over Ret and Prot for sure. That's the point.
Okay.
And the rate viability issue for Ret does not it hasn't changed. They didn't address it in any way, or they didn't give Red anything exclusive. Like Red had the Unbound Freedom talent, where you give freedom to someone else when you freedom yourself, which was the thing you used it for on Ansurek. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, but then they just gave it to every spec, or I think to Prot at least.
Yeah, and then you don't have spell ward, right? And then you are. I think the one positive with Red is it's the only, maybe now that's not true with Hunter. It's or one of the only, regardless, one of the only DPS you can bring that can bring an external. Because if you don't play a Holy Paladin, you bring a Ret instead, you still retain potentially 2 externals if something's physical. And then on top of that, you're gaining one most likely with whatever healer you replaced Holy with. But there hasn't been a fight in recent memory where having a bop is crazy. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be interesting to see now with the changes to how raid damage happens, how valuable externals even are, because things are just going to most likely be less one-shotty. So yeah, and that's never the reason you bring one thing over the other, right? It's a nice thing when the red is in. It's never we need to have a red because of this.
Exactly. For example, on my world rank, Blessing of Protection was insanely OP on Kai'Veza. That's also why I personally like the playing red on that fight. I know you ranked the fight pretty low because of what happened during the world first race.
Yeah.
But Bob was insanely OP, and it felt really good on that fight, specifically.
Yeah.
But obviously that's that's the exception to the rule.
Yeah, that was the single hardest hitting like thing you could be targeted by in like the history of WoW. Yeah.
Yeah, there should like honestly just be an option to get Aura Mastery or Blessing of Spell Warding for red, or even like all 3 specs. I don't mind that either. But just have like a talent on the spec trees of each spec that like buffs their formerly exclusive utility, you know? Like, for example, Aura Mastery for red is 5 minutes or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Something like either anything in that direction would help raid viability by a lot.
Yeah, and then also your class had a second raid buff with Ret Aura, who's either in Dragonflight, and then they removed it, and then now like they low key gave another class like a stackable raid buff, which like kind of probably feels bad if you're Ret that got that removed, because that like insanely increased the likelihood that you'd play a second paladin. Okay, so where do you think it ends up in raid? What's the power level looking like right now?
Okay, so tuning wise, you can either put it into C or like Midnight Default UI. I haven't like watched a lot of the Hilo talk, but I think it's just, it looks terrible. Like the damage numbers are just not there. Like even if red was like semi-decent, you wouldn't bring it over the other 2 specs. And in its current form, it's just the bottom of C tier. You don't have a D tier, but it's the bottom of the C. Yeah, or the Midnight Default UI.
All right, what about Mythic Plus?
Yeah, for Mythic Plus, like most of Red's AoE in dungeons was coming from Templar, which got subsequently nerfed for Midnight, and there haven't really been any like compensation buffs or changes for it. And the funnel, which we talked about in the earlier talk from Execution Sentence, like isn't really that strong. Like it seemed good on paper. I know we kind of talked about it, but it doesn't really do that much. Like they also buffed it by 10% recently, which is basically doubling the damage it's doing, but it still doesn't do a whole lot, even with the double damage. Like it's probably gonna need another nudge like upwards, but we'll just have to see. Yeah. And then Imperial. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
No. They also recently nerfed a really strong cleave node for red, which is Empyrean Power.
Oh yeah, the one that gives you the 3 Divine Storms.
Yeah, they basically completely nuked it for cleave, and its value is now the same in single target and AoE, because before you would like get additional proc chances of your cleave, basically. And now they made it so that only the melee swings from one target give you a proc chance. So it's 5% in single target and AoE. And before it was a whole lot more in AoE. So yeah, that is quite a stinker, quite bad.
So do you think it's at the bottom?
I think the point that like you can give to red is as it was also in recent like seasons, the fact that you have an external, like you mentioned, like sacrifice is really strong in M+. Like just giving it to a squishier target is just insanely good.
Yeah. And
also you bring battle res, you bring DP, but like we'll just have to wait and see how good the utility actually is and what the meta comp looks like. Because if you need a battle res, then I think like red actually has like at least a chance to get brought, but it definitely needs numbers tuning. And yeah, I mean, just put it into C tier as well. It's just not good. Like it has more potential for M+, is my thought. But it definitely needs more numbers, and Execution Sentence just needs to do more damage. Or like do something else with the ability itself. Because the initial hit, you know how Execution Sentence works, you just hit, and then it marks targets, and then the damage gets funneled into the Execution Sentence target. But the hit itself also just does like absolutely no damage, which I guess is fine if they just want to have like its marking function be the main thing. But it also means that the marking should just be reliable. And currently the area is kind of small, and you're basically waiting for like all stuff to be gathered quite close to get the funnel that you want. And they like if they don't have it make strong damage, the area could just be slightly bigger, or could even make it, I don't know, spread the debuff with Divine Storm, so you like whenever something gets into the pack, you get the extra funnel. Something like that.
Do you think that do you think this is at least good enough to keep the Discord up, or you think that shit's going down?
We'll have to talk with Boas about that, but like this is not new for Red. Like Red has never, in a single time, Red has never been good at the start of a tier. Like legit never. And or at least in the modern WoW history, at least. It has been buffed so much so that it's good for farm, like after, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. But like purely numbers wise, it was never good enough to be brought instantly.
Yeah, I'm trying
In
to
my
think.
experience.
I'm trying to think. I remember we used one in Battle to Zaralore and it was good. And that wasn't like right away though. That was like the second tier. Yeah, I think you're right. There's been a couple of times where we've played it in the second and third tier, but I don't know if it's ever been like good enough at the beginning of an expansion, at least in the last like 5 years.
You used it on Ansarek, but that was for its utility and not for its damage.
Correct. And I don't. Yeah, no, we played one on Ansarek. Yeah, it was the only way.
Yeah.
You either had to play Prop Paladin or Ret Paladin as the only way to like have
Exactly,
enough freedoms with everything that was OP. So yeah, it was more of like a tech pick, but I also think they did like pretty good. They did like good in the intermission and stuff like that. But and Warriors carried all the AoE and stuff, so it was okay to bring like a single target class. All right, sweet. All right. What's up?
Yeah, there are a couple more points if you don't mind, like me
Sure.
taking like 5 more minutes.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Currently, and even in raid testing, Red has situations where they have legit nothing to press for like up to 5 seconds when you're playing Crusading Strikes, and that's just awful for a melee. Like,
Yeah.
you're just sitting there and doing nothing is just horrendous. They either need to like buff Crusading Strikes power or like speed, or just I don't know, give you like additional procs or something. Like it feels horrible to play. And then the hero talents like Herald of the Sun is now slightly less worse, but the design is still awful, and the whole hero talent just feels like an afterthought. It doesn't really do anything for it specifically. And as long as the bugs to Judgment and Hammer of Wrath are there, which I will get to right now, and the hero talent only buffs Hammer of Wrath, there's a lot of room like to fuck up the tuning, and it's just not going to be good. Right now, it just looks like we'll continue never playing Herald of the Sun ever, like we did almost the entirety of the War Within, unless they just randomly buff its exclusive damage components like Dawnlight or whatever for 0 reason. But yeah. So Templar still looks like to be the default choice, especially now that they buffed Seal of the Templar to 25%, and they also buffed Divine Hammer again. And this also made them buff Divine Storm, which was necessary because it would have made us press Final Verdict on 2 targets, and that's just terrible. If you press your single target spender on Cleave, it's just awful. Like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's like a plethora of bugs, which I just want to like go over really quickly because I think it's detrimental that we don't have a repetition of what happened to Red during the War Within, because we got our bugs fixed and then got nerfed while like at the same time. So there are like plenty of things that absolutely crush our damage. Something like the talent Judgment of Justice doesn't really increase the damage of Hammer of Wrath, including Divine Toll, Divine Resonance, Divine Execution, and Second Sunrise. Swift Justice does not reduce the cooldown of Hammer of Wrath, for example. It just doesn't do anything. Hammer of Wrath cast by the Paladin, the Divine Toll ability, Divine Execution, they all do not grant stacks of Sanctification. And somehow the Hammer of Wrath cast by Divine Resonance does. So there's like a whole lot of things that just don't work together, and they put different spell IDs into the abilities. It's just like, it's crazy. There's a talent, it's a capstone node for our class, Vengeful Wrath, that just doesn't do anything right now. It effectively doesn't do anything. It just doesn't work. How is that a capstone? Like, it's just crazy. But the other specs like are also affected by that. So yeah. And yeah, there are several other bugs. I just want to get the biggest one out of the way as well. Hammer of Light has a talent where if you press it, you apply judgment to your target. So the thought behind it is you get the extra damage from judgment, but it applies only a single judgment debuff, and it does not consume the judgment debuff, and the judgment debuff vanishes after 2 seconds, but it can still consume a pre-existing judgment debuff. So it only works if you press judgment before. It just doesn't make any sense.
That's not good.
Yeah. Execution Sentence I already talked about, but right now
didn't Execution Sentence get combined with Sanctified Wrath, or the thing that was like the AoE version choice node?
With Final Reckoning, yeah.
Yeah, Final Reckoning.
That's yeah, exactly. Execution Sentence got buffed to 20%, but currently it's still at 10%. Like they buffed it, but apparently in patch notes only because it doesn't work in game properly. And it also incorrectly accumulates all magical damage done instead of the holy damage. So arcane, nature, fire, stuff from trinkets, from like special effects, items, whatever. It accumulates all of that instead of holy damage. So it's just very like weird. I don't know. Yeah, but that's like I want to get it out there because people need to hear that. It's just a whole lot of bugs.
It's definitely really frustrating if you feel like your class could be good, but there's like unintended interactions or like things that are not working right. That would be the difference between you being good and not. I think it's a fair thing to do to use your time to do that. That's fair. That is it though. We gotta get moving. I gotta work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're good though. All right. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, love you, bye.
Fuck. All right. Calling word up. Hello?
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
what's up? Let me put this in chat. I guess I have to pin it myself because my mods are fucking asleep. Okay, wait. People are typing too much. God damn it. There we go. Yo, so I had some people like initially be like, "Yo, enhanced pruning, like didn't feel very good," or like it's one of the classes I think if you were to just judge a class by how much buttons they have purely based on the weak aura package that just shows the buttons you want to keep track of, I feel like enhanced might be the most in the entire game historically. So I was like a little scared when I started playing it on PTR. I was like, damn, maybe this won't feel the same. But I actually like really enjoyed, at least I have no idea how strong it is. That's what you're here for. But I actually really enjoyed the gameplay. I thought it like they retained a lot of Enhance's flavor. I hope you feel the same, but like how do you feel after the pruning that most classes got?
I'd say thematically, like gameplay wise, it's really, really similar to how it was. Even going back like over the years for older versions of it, it still is the same kind of spec. They did manage to take what was honestly like a super bloated version of it in War Within and trim it and present something that was really good. They did a really good job on the pruning aspect. Like broad strokes, I think it's probably the biggest success story they have.
What did they do?
They
just you don't use Frost Shock anymore, right? Is that like what else is major?
They basically chopped all of the tertiary the things that are sort of sub level like important stuff like fillers and like secondary maelstrom spenders and stuff, and they just focused on having each button mean something all the time for whichever hero talent you are. There is a reason to have the button and press the button. And it's more clear when you press them and why, rather than having like 10 different buffs to track and like mid-fight gauging whether or not it's stronger to press A or B. It's pretty obvious when A is better than B and so on. So they made it clearer to understand without needing a guide or like someone in your ear telling you, which was really important, I think, with the whole UI thing going on.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything you're unhappy with still?
So there's like a little bias in this. There's a really, really big important bit I have to get out of the way first. Is that there's a massive bug for one of the hero talents that's basically stopping people from playing it in Mythic Plus, where it spawns searing totems, and they have They do not care if you're in combat with something. They will shoot across the room and they'll pull everything.
Didn't they fix
so people
that?
are just not playing it. I've heard different things that it has been fixed, but there's like a really long period of time where that bug was there, where there's been no data gathered about it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the hero talent that's noticeably better than the other one, which personally, like, I'm okay with. I really like that one, but there are people who like Stormbringer. I really don't like the direction they took it in at all.
Oh, interesting.
And
I really liked it before last expansion.
I really liked it last expansion, and this one they've sort of replaced quite a lot of the like calculated play in it, and they've replaced it just with RNG, and a lot of it, and it's really weighted. It's not like it's numerically wrong. It's not as strong as Totemic, but it's just that feel doesn't click with me. But that's fine. I know there are people who do like it, and they'll probably still enjoy it. It's just there's like a tuning problem with it where I don't think that they can tune it single target ever, because there's nothing in it that's unique to that related to single target, which long term is a really big problem if they ever need to rebalance between trees.
Yeah. Okay. Enhance has been Enhance has been Enhance has been like the de facto shaman buff outside of last year, for like a really long time. Do you think that's coming back, or do you think they're gonna get edged out by another class or another spec?
Well, Ellie's had a pretty rocky situation in beta. I don't think they're thrilled at what's going on, and they also got nerfed in the last pass, and I'm not really sure why. I think that alone would probably lean me towards saying that Enhance will get played, but there's a month between now and anything happening. And on that topic, Enhancement has seen almost no developer updates whatsoever since the very first alpha build. So I'm not sure if they're happy with where it is, if they know where it is.
I mean, it sounds like they are, right?
So
yeah.
It's there's every possibility that like we start playing it and suddenly they go, oh wow, this is actually way stronger, or this is much weaker, or it's doing something that we don't want it to, and it's just like slipped under. I'd like to hope that they are paying attention to that, but because there's been so little like attention paid to it, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
where that's going to
I'm
land.
less concerned about a class's power not getting addressed. Even if you've gotten no changes, they might just feel like the gameplay's in a good spot. What's going to happen over the next few weeks is like every week, even after the expansion is out, before the season comes out, you're just going to see notes that are basically just buffing numbers in either directions. Zero design or gameplay changes, just purely like tuning. So if you feel like your class is below or behind, I feel like that has a high likelihood of being addressed if it's like if it's an extremity. If it's an outlier.
Well, I'm more so. I think its numbers are right around like a decent to good spec numbers wise. Probably in like for a raid, high B, low A, maybe a little more, because its damage profiles are really versatile and flexible.
Okay.
Specifically for Totemic, which within the raid that we played in the tests, sans a few that were kind of like your melee, so you don't get to take advantage of like the targets that are around. It was able to just adapt to any fight with like basically no talent swaps, but it's not like there's any talents on the tree to swap around anyway.
I mean, that historically that's a good thing. Like it's weird.
That's a really, really good spot to be in if you've got that.
It's weird because you want options, but at the same time, the class with less options that's just always playing the same build is actually just like really OP. Always.
Yeah, I don't see a reason, like, design or profile-wise, that it would just fall off the face of the earth. It's in a better spot than it was in Manaforge, because Manaforge was very streamlined into just one thing, and that kind of showed when it didn't get played. It's much closer to the Nerebar and Undermine type of situation, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'd probably say, from a damage perspective, it's in the low A. From the other perspective, though, no, for Mythic Plus, Mythic Plus kind of has like its own barrel of problems where And I know that basically every DPS always refers to this as a problem, but I think defensively, shaman is as a whole is in a serious state. Like
Seriously bad.
we already weren't very defendy in the War Within, but we were good enough that you could reasonably survive with some healer attention. But in the pruning, we lost defensives when we were already under the budget of what most other melee have. And healers also have more to pay attention to now. So they don't have as much time to like babysit just one person, especially in Mythic Plus, which is a really big weakness. If Mythic Plus ever gets into that territory, it's about surviving, not about making the time. And then on top of that, we lost quite a lot of just control tools. We lost Thunderstorm, the knockup, which really OP. That's just gone. We can't do knock away anymore either. We lost double stun. We don't interrupt with sundering anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just less that we bring as a package, as a whole. In the notes there that you're looking at, they did buff our passive defense, which is good.
Which is, I think, extremely important, actually. So if your class in the history of WoW has ever gotten a passive DR, having more HP, which is basically the same thing, or especially now, and having more passive DR, I think that's so good, because like clearly the raid damage intake is much more based on attrition instead of like super bursty stuff. So like, I think this is like not a small deal. I think this is like pretty significant.
It's a pretty big buff, just broad strokes, which I think is them noticing that we have a problem. Like they did buff our self-healing and then subsequently nerfed it before it hit live, but they buffed it by a huge amount. I think they over doubled it at the time, and then they walked back on that to it. Like it's more like 20-30%.
Well, can you do like healing surges on yourself now without consuming your Maelstrom weapon stacks and have it still be fat?
It's not as big as it was, but it doesn't consume any resources anymore, which is amazing.
It's like which would you rather?
Like
which would you rather have?
Yeah,
would you rather like juicing an entire 10 Maelstrom weapon thing but get topped, or like get healed less but you don't lose any damage from it except for the global?
Yeah, I think like that trade-off was good. It does add an extra step between you like doing the healing, but the trade-off of not sacrificing loads of damage to do so is worth it.
Yeah.
Like the ideas behind basically everything they did was good. There's like edges that needed to be sanded down between then and now that haven't been. And the healing thing has had quite a few bugs through it as well, where it's resetting the stacks, so it stops being instant if you don't do a 10 stack spender again. And with all of the UI things, you don't really have the space to track everything. So it's hard to know unless you dedicate space to that.
Yeah.
And then you could get caught hard casting it.
I set up a few specs that I normally play, like hit dummies a little bit, and Enhanced still like had a cooldown manager set up that looks like what it did before the War Within, or before like Midnight. Like there's still like a decent amount of buttons on there, which feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think you could almost like wholesale look at an old one and a new one, and you wouldn't see much different in terms of
it's basically like
how much you need to track.
Ice Strike and Frost Shock are gone, and it's and the fire one, whatever that thing is, like that's basically all that's gone.
Yeah, I do want to just kind of like the last guy, just mention like a few really important bugs that people.
Yeah, it's fine.
That have just always been there. We have a talent called Lightning Strikes, which is when you spend 10 Maelstrom, you reset. You get some Maelstrom back, and you buff the next Storm Strike and Lava Life. That one isn't when you spend 10 like cumulatively. It's only when you spend 10 all at once, which is really awkward to play when we spend like a non-fixed increments of like our resource. So it disincentivizes you from spending at any point below, even though you're allowed to. And you can take a talent that you can avoid a talent that means that you can never spend 10 at once, which means you can never activate it. But you can still go through that talent, and it's like a pathing talent that you need to go through.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like any of the other talents that it replaced from the past. It's really awkward. You have to explain it to people because intuitively it should just count, and every 10 it goes. So that one's really important in the bottom left. We have like there's a few class auras that just aren't applying to things. That one I think they'll eventually get. We have our wolves. They just despawn sometimes on their own. We've had that bug before, but they just stop being there. We can't really tell why. I think the main thing is it's related to if you don't talent Feral Spirit, but you spawn them from Stormbringer, or vice versa. They don't. It checks, and because you haven't got them, it despawns them because you shouldn't have them, but you do because you've got either or. So yeah, there's a few like really weird bugs that are hanging on for a really long time. Hopefully they do fix them though. And then there's just the class tree sucks for us, but I think that's shared with Ellie and Resto. Like, we spend, like, maybe 3 points at the bottom, which is, I would say, generally a pretty bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Did you rank Enhance and Mythic Plus at all before you did the bugs? I might have missed it.
No, I think damage-wise, it's got the potential to be, like, mid to high tier potential. But the limitations of like if the comp can't keep you alive or you are exclusively just bringing damage and Sky Fury, because I don't think a lot of our other utility is anywhere near what it used to be.
Yeah,
that's like a question mark that I'm worried about enough that like if say prop paladin isn't that popular and historically they're the guys who keep you alive, you're sort of nerfed by proxy of what the most popular comp is. So I'd probably only be comfortable in sticking it in like B, solely because its damage is good enough to keep up with like other classes in that area.
Yeah, I also think like feeling weaker defensively or not having as many buttons to press on something that's going to do a ton of damage to you is more significant in Mythic Plus than Raid. I think they're going to really dial in Raid damage to where classes like that can survive and there isn't going to be as many things you need personals for. But because of the way Mythic Plus scales, I find it very hard. I could be wrong. I find it very hard to believe they're going to execute on that. Like, I think you're going to get to key levels where classes that have less defensives are going to feel that, and that could absolutely hurt you, where I don't know if that's going to be true in Raid. So I think that's fair.
I think in Raid it's less of a concern because there's more tools going around because you've got more healers. So if someone needs something and they bring the damage to warrant having the spot anyway, you can usually find a solution. But in Mythic Plus, you have to be doing an astronomically larger amount of damage than the competitor that you'd be replacing for them to need to adjust the strategy around keeping you alive. And it's happened once before for us in Season 1 of The War Within, but our damage is not in that range at all. So I'd be more hesitant, not for damage factors, for just everything else factors, to like put it any higher than B.
Yeah, I think the one thing it has going for it, I'm not sure about the strength of Ellie and Resto, but I think like the raid buff is like really underrated. I think Sky Fury is like really good.
I think it's one of the best, if not the best. It's really close to.
It depends on.
You always want one.
It's one of those weird. It's one of those weird raid buffs where it depends on the other classes, right? Like some classes gain a lot more than others, right? But, all right, W. All right, that's all.
I'd say like as a final thing that like we're very firmly more raid strong than Mythic Plus strong right now.
Yeah.
But that could change between now and then.
Yep. Chaos, love you, bye. I think that strat actually can't be beaten. I don't think you could ever lose with that. Just a quick little chaos leave. Let me see if he takes next round. You around, my dude? Before I call him though. Okay, so I'm okay with people doing the like I want to talk about the bugs because like I think there's a decent chance that like a class designer might listen to this, especially if it's not just ranking for power and they're actually, you know, talking about the ins and outs of these classes a little bit. I think it's like really good information for them. They might also get that from these discords that I'm sure tell them this shit. You know what I mean? But I know it really bothers some of you that we do that. But I'm just gonna guess here. I'm gonna guess most of you are here for literally the power rankings that are saying that, or you're just like, oh, just get to my spec. But I think a lot of those people are gonna be serviced by just waiting till this is a YouTube video before early access comes out and literally scrolling to the end and just looking at the list. You know what I'm saying? Or watching. You're gonna scroll ahead to your specific spec or class and then like listen to that and ignore everything else. But like right here on stream, it's obviously like you just can't wait. You have to wait till your class is here. I would just say like for example, if someone was like, I'd like to talk about a few bugs and they started talking for 30 minutes, that would be too much. I think that slows down the content. I probably wouldn't even include all of that in the video, but I think like a nice little 5-minute, you want to talk about some bugs, that's fine. But also if people don't want to do it and they don't feel like their class is super bugged, I think that's fine. Because like, I'm just going to make this up. I think mentioning the bugs on my stream in this video here, if it increases how much it increases the chance that it will get addressed, it's probably non-zero, but it's like closer to zero than you think. You know what I mean? I still like some integrity of this content and not just being like a power thing, because I mean it's already kind of a meme with power, because like there's like 30 different people ranking it, right? It's not one person, although I don't think one person would ever have the information to accurately rank all of these outside of the top guilds, at least for raid, and they're never going to do that. Not to mention this is going to change a bit. We'll have to update this because I'm doing this pretty early, but I wanted it out for early access, and I didn't want to do it during fellowship next week, so or in a few days, I guess, not next week. So we're going to do DK next, which I'm like really excited about because I set up a few of the characters that I really like playing on beta, and DK, both Frost and Unholy, to me felt like really good. Like I liked the direction of both of them. Frost is like largely unchanged, but like the Unholy stuff was kind of cooked when it first came out. And I love the gameplay of Unholy and the class fantasy, especially with those nerfs recently. If you end up playing Rider of the Apocalypse, I feel like this class is it's just gonna hit crazy, you know. So I'm hoping he's saying it's good, but I think I'm like pretty sure that Unholy, or just DPS DK in general, is gonna be like the first character I level and the character I'm gonna play in season 1. All right, W, calling him. Yo, what's up?
Yo, how's it going, Max?
Yeah, it's going great. This is my favorite. You're my favorite person that I'm talking to. Not because of, well, that's gonna sound crazy. Not because of you. I do like you, but also I really, really like DPS DK, and I'm hoping you agree and confirm all of my feelings. But purely gameplay, you can speak about. Let's actually start with like Unholy, the one that was like changed a lot. I think Frost is like largely pretty similar to last season. They got like a really recent rework. Although I do think their Apex talent is like one of the coolest in the game.
Yeah.
But just Unholy, like, how do you feel about the pruning those classes got, and how do you feel about the rework?
So the rework's kind of weird. Like they reworked almost everything about Unholy, yet it plays almost exactly the same as it did before. Because you have the lesser ghoul buffs instead of festering wounds now, and you still manage those essentially the same way. So like the playstyle is pretty much the same, but it fits the class fantasy so much more. You're just summoning absolute armies of ghouls, maguses. You know, you got all your pets coming around. It's honestly really cool. I like the design. I like the themes. I do feel like they really gimped the AoE gameplay aspect of it, and that's probably my biggest complaint with the rework.
Yeah, I felt that way too, where they were like, we're getting rid of wounds, but it's like, if you really think about it, you just definitely still have wounds. Like that, it's just a thing. Like,
yeah.
It's just on you.
Yeah, exactly. They just moved them to the player instead of the enemies, which is fine. Like, you don't have to track it on every enemy that you're fighting against. It's good quality of life. And it does add to the theme, like I said, with all the lesser ghouls you're summoning. But yeah, like, gameplay is pretty much the same, but it's a good gameplay loop. I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah. How do you feel about like the disease stuff and like pestilence exploding and all that shit? Because it's like something that isn't gonna pop off the first time you use that on a pack because it hasn't had enough time to like really sit yet. But like I feel like if you are in a Mythic Plus pack specifically, or you're in raid and ads have been out for a while, and that second cooldown use is gonna feel. I know they just nerfed it, I think, like a couple days ago, but
they did, yeah.
I still think it like I love the idea of that.
So the disease aspect of the class right now is extremely underbaked. Like most of the talents for diseases are like, oh, increase your disease damage by 5%, increase your disease damage by 10%. It's mechanically it's just entirely not there except for pestilence, like you're saying. If you can get a good build up and burst on pestilence, it's really good, but it's also just like one button you're pressing every 45 seconds, so it's not like super engaging. You're not doing anything super particular to extend your diseases an extra time, because pretty much everything you're doing is going to extend them anyway. So I just really feel like that gameplay is lacking, but the damage it does is kind of insane before the nerfs. We haven't seen how much it's doing after the nerfs yet because they're not coming till Tuesday, but I still expect it's going to be pretty intense.
All right, sweet. Do you think Unholy raid buff is like a whole other Actually, let's just go there. How you feeling about that? Oh, shit, I'm muted. Sorry. I don't even know how the fuck that happened.
All good.
Yeah, dude, I wasn't just like hard quiet. Let's talk about raid buffs for a second, which I know is
Oh god, here we go again.
it's a nice topic for DKs. So last year, going into the tier was all about DKs have no raid buff, and hunters like kind of flew under the radar, and then hunters got sat for one boss, which by the way, only in the very first week, hunter was like insanely bis in the second reset that boss was killable, and then their reaction to that was giving hunters a raid buff that's so good that you could never possibly sit them, and anytime there's a second target that matters, you're going to play two of them, and yet they're still hard sticking to the like, don't worry, we're going to make sure that ads are grippable and only grippable and by no other forms of CC. Is there any thoughts about that?
Oh, God. So I have a lot to say about this. I'm sorry if I ramble a bit beforehand, but
Nah, go for it.
The raid buff situation on DK right now, it's honestly abysmal. So you have this like excuse that they had back in Liberation of Undermine when they made almost everything immune to grips. We're like, oh, we're afraid of Abomination Limb. It's just way too powerful. We can't possibly make ads grippable.
Yeah,
so we made basically nothing grippable. And then come midnight and they add Abomination Limb back, but only for Blood. So now Blood has Gorfians and Abomination Limb available to them. So we're just sitting here in a situation where like, okay, Abomination Limb's too powerful, but Blood just gets it now. Like, what are you guys doing?
Yep.
And they're always gambling on that final boss, requiring grips, and that being the reason why you bring a DK or DPS DK in general. They did normalize the grip cooldown between DPS and Blood now, so all three specs have a 15-second grip cooldown now, but the utility of Abomination Limb or Gorfian's Grasp is still entirely in the realm of just, if you need grips, you bring Blood. They didn't even normalize like the AMS stuff either, so Blood still gets a better AMS. Like, it's all over the place, and it's really frustrating to try to convince Blizzard that grip is not a viable raid buff.
Yeah, it's just like how I just don't understand why the conviction is so strong that they have to be right about this, when like I feel like everyone looking at it is just like, bro, just do it, especially if they're willing to do the hunter thing. Like, that's crazy. Like DKs are frequently not brought to rain encounters because the grip isn't needed and maybe they aren't tuned really well, and it happened to hunters literally one time. And then it's not even like hunters, it was only for the race to world first. That's it. After the first couple of guilds killed it, I would argue that Marks Hunters were actually the single best class in the last phase. They weren't even like shit. They were just not good in the race. That's it. They weren't good enough in P1 and P2. And like, that happened one time on one boss, and they're like, all right, you guys are getting the best raid buff ever. I just can't get it.
I don't either, man. Like, I get that having grip there to be able to get enemies to where you want them is incredibly powerful when it's designed into a fight. But you can't expect designers to design every single fight that way, And having a raid buff that's only, usable one or two fights a tier isn't really a raid buff. That's required utility. It's, it's similar to like old Hunter's Trap when you're looking at something like Battle for Dazara Lore, stuff like that. Like, it's just required utility to keep ads where you want them, not really a raid buff.
Yeah. All right. So, all that shit aside, I feel the same way. Do you think we are? I'm gonna ask you to rate Unholy DK for raid, but I'm also just gonna ask you if you think that DKs are going to be played in this raid.
First of all, like, yeah, I do think DPS DKs are going to be played in this raid tier because there's 3 separate raids. Just because of the fight designs in general, there's a lot of ad spawns. There's a lot of passive cleave that we got to be able to do, and Frost especially has a lot of really good burst cleave. And there's some stuff you can do with Unholy too. I'll get into that when we talk more about Unholy specifically. But I do think they're going to be brought to the raid for those grips that are probably going to be needed and the cleave that you're going to need.
Okay, so what about Unholy specifically for raid?
So you were talking about pestilence earlier, and it kind of has to do with this. So there's a mechanic that Unholy has where it's spreading its virulent plague through Scourge Strike. Not a lot of people know this, but it spreads at the current virulent plague duration. So if you can build up a big virulent plague on the boss, when those ads spawns, you spread it to them and then hit your pestilence, you're getting 50, 60 second consume basically instantly off the rip on those ads, and it's going to be insane.
Yeah. You think that's going to be strong then?
Almost surely, but I also expect it to get nerfs, and that's probably not going to be great because Unholy's single target and AoE are incredibly closely linked now. Like, all of the same abilities are used in AoE and single target. So if they have to bring it down in one of those scenarios, it's going to hurt the other. And Unholy's biggest weakness right now does end up being in low target count cleave to the mid target count cleave areas, which is what a lot of the raid focuses on.
Yeah.
So if they say need to bring down its single target potential to not be overtuned, which I do believe it's overtuned in single target right now, it's really going to bring down its cleave and AoE potential, and it's really going to hurt it. So I'm kind of iffy about Unholy, but I do think Frost, if it's tuned well, which right now it's kind of undertuned, but if they get the tuning right, you'll definitely see DPS DKs in the raid.
Yeah, I know if someone listens to this, what I'm about to say, and they're like, I'll believe it when I see it, I think that's totally fair. But I just want to say that basically the only tuning that's going to happen from now on the next month, and there is a month until tuning will stop. And there's a heroic week, by the way. So if your class is truly dog shit, they typically won't, with no heroic week, they won't make changes until, the world first race is over, so we're not all fucked on our preparation. But now they have an entire week to make those changes before we actually start Mythic. So I would be less concerned if your class is fun but feels like it's undertuned. I think that is an okay spot to be in. Okay, if it ends up you rewind, or a month from now you rewind back to this and you're like, okay, well, my class still ended up being shit. You were wrong. Why did you say that? You might low roll, but I think there's a decent chance they actually look at that, and I would much rather have a class that's really fun to play because I think there's a decent chance they'll be able to look at the tuning.
Exactly. Yeah, we still have plenty of time before the race, and I imagine they're still going to be doing tuning every single week up until then.
Okay, so before ranking either of them, talk about Frost for a little bit. You have Frost. I feel like largely plays this outside of the Apex talent, which I do think is really fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's basically the same as last season, but I think last season, outside of the weird travel time shit with
the power rune
weapon, which was really frustrating, and you had to kind of learn how to play the spec differently on different fights. I feel like the rework turned out really well, even though I was really sad to see Breath be gone. But
Breath is still there; it's just way different. But okay, yeah. You don't get the extension gameplay like you did before. It's nowhere near the same.
It's a meaningless button. You macro it into something, it does damage. On a cooldown, it's nothing.
Yeah, I get you there. So Frost, like you said, it's basically the same as it was in 11.2 when it got its major rework. The only major thing it got was a minor Frostbane tweak that made it viable in single target because they added a single target damage component to, what was it, Shattering Blade, I think it was? One of the two. But basically, there's now viable Frostbane builds, which does add a new gameplay element aside from, the Obliteration and Breath Syndragosa builds, which could be interesting to see. You might actually see a single target Frostbane build, which I think we're actually running right now in pre-patch.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. The talent tree is well designed. You have a ton of different options. I really like Frost right now, honestly. Especially with its passive cleave potential. That's probably its biggest strengths in raid, between Breath, Remorseless Winter, your Obliterate cleaves, you have Howling Blades, all of that. It does a lot of really good passive cleave, which tends to be really, really good for this raid tier.
All right, sweet. How strong do you think Frost will be in raid?
With current tuning, I'm going to probably put it in like mid B tier. It definitely could be stronger, but it's got the toolkit to be really strong if they hit the tuning mark. So maybe high B just in case they tune it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Frost has all the tools. It has like the perfect makeup of being a really sick raid spec. It's just if they get the tuning right. Like having all that passive cleave is actually just so broken for raid.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with Apex, which I completely didn't even talk about. Like, you can recall your Frostworm, which actually triggers all of the effects of all of the different things that Frostworm triggers. So you can, summon your riders with it. You can get extra exterminate stacks. You can even freeze the enemies because that's something that Frostworm's Fury does. So you can even use it as like this utility cooldown as an Apex, to where you can freeze enemies in place for a couple seconds, help with ad control too. Like, it's so good, man.
Yeah. What about Unholy for raid?
With the current tuning, it's obviously overtuned in single target. I'm going to put it in like high A tier, like right next to Demo. Because
Alright.
if the tuning stays the way it is, it's going to be probably broken on most fights, especially if we can make Pestilence work. If we can't, it'll be a bit worse because it won't have passive cleave, but it'll still have monstrous single target. So it's got to go in A.
Alright, what about single target? They've been like a mythic, or not a single target, sorry. What about Mythic Plus? They've been like a Mythic Plus darling for the past expansion or so, right? They've been frequently good. Do you think that continues?
So I do think it's got some viability in Mythic Plus. Let's start with Frost, actually. Frost, as usual, it's just got a great kit for Mythic Plus. It's got all the cooldowns, it's got all the passive cleaves. It's got everything that you could possibly want. Like I said before, it's just a tuning thing. If they get the tuning right, it'll be insane. If they don't, it'll be mediocre, but it'll still be a good Mythic Plus spec. So let's probably put it like low A tier for Frost.
Okay.
When it comes to Unholy, though, Pestilence has a major issue with low keys, kind of similar to like old Bursting Swords did, where things just don't live long enough for you to extend your diseases on. You can't hit those big pestilences. So you have to go with like a Menacing Megas setup for Mythic Plus as Unholy for anything lower than like a plus 18. So I don't think it's going to be that good in lower keys, but in high keys, it could be really good if you're able to get those gig extensions.
I think it's fair to say that the Mythic Plus tier list is almost certainly talking about the very, very high end. At least I think that's the context that most other people are looking at it. And also, you're so right about the Bursting Swords thing. I think there's never a worse key too low feeling than being like a Bursting Swords Unholy DK in the past, and just like everything dies before you can do any of your damage.
Yep. And that's going to be, same issue with Pestilence that we're going to see. But at least we have Outnumber and we have Reanimation along with Menacing Magus to pick up that AoE potential. The Maguses right now are probably a bit undertuned, but it's not like world ending. It's like they account for like 6-7% of our overall DPS, which is, it's okay, but for a capstone and 2 other points that you have to spend to get that, it's not great, but it does the job. But yeah, I mean, if they get the tuning right in high keys, I feel like Unholy will probably be right next to Frost. A good key spec, but probably not going to be usable in most weekly keys that people are going to be running.
Yeah. Dude, you said 6-7 and everyone in chat started just
oh god
spamming.
I'm so sorry.
It's spam 6-7, but that's not even the annoying part. Like, some mod like banned all versions of 6-7 a while ago, so every time someone types it, it gets auto modded and I have to click allow for all of them to go through. It's completely cursed.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, where'd you say Unholy went? Sorry, I was getting 6-7.
Right next to Frost, A tier.
Cool. Ahead or below?
Probably ahead right now. It'll depend on tuning though, honestly.
Yeah. All right, fuck yeah. I'm really excited. This is gonna be my main. I'm main in DK for sure. I'm so happy with how it plays.
It's fun.
Yeah, and it's also.
I didn't even talk about the Unholy Apex either, which is honestly pretty cool in itself. But what were you saying?
I was gonna say we also haven't talked about the fact that the class is like completely unkillable and cannot be moved in a state where they nerfed defensives for. They did nerf like DK defensives, but like it doesn't matter. Like I still feel like that class is just insanely tanky.
Yeah, it's basically unkillable, especially if you're Unholy. We swapped to Rune of the Apocalypse for our Rune Forge, which basically comes with a passive 18% DR on any target you're taking damage from. So
yeah, I didn't even know
it's
that.
disgusting.
I didn't even know that. That like makes absolutely no sense. Okay.
Yeah, I expect the defensive nature of Rune of the Apocalypse to get nuked from orbit, but they haven't done it yet somehow.
Yeah. All right. Love you, bye, Chaos. Dude, I'm fucking on this shit today by not giving them a chance. New strat goes crazy. I literally clapped right now. Okay, so my mom, let me double check. Her flight is getting here a little late. She sent me the flight information. Let me actually double check it. So it looks like they're landing in an hour and 23 minutes. And then she has a checked bag. So LAX, that like takes a while. Probably want to be there at like 4:45. 30-minute drive today. I think I can do at least like another hour of this, which is good. We can get a lot of these out of the way. Bro, someone tell Tazenak the Blizzard dev hasn't even heard of Rune of the Apocalypse. No way that shit gets nerfed. I mean, it probably will, right? Like, it just sounds like it's too strong. But that's okay. Okay, so people have lined up. I got a Shadow Priest. I got a Hunter. I got a Windwalker. And that's it. I think that might actually just be all we do today. Where would that leave us? Like, let's just, like, put them all in Midnight default UI. Actually, I don't think you can move things back down once you've ranked them, right? Oh, you can. So how many would that leave for tomorrow if I did all of those? I mean, that's like doable, right? In one day. I mean, I used to do this whole list in one day, but I kind of stopped doing that for a few reasons. The main one being is I find myself at the end of the stream being so drained from talking to people for like 6 hours that I like skip through the last like couple classes. I kind of rush through them, and I feel like that's not fair to that class or those classes. Like, it is like just being in active conversation. I can only do that for like a certain amount of hours a day before I get kind of cooked. Let's do Windwalker. So is this it for today? Nah, we're doing a few more. Who's doing DH? Currently do not have anyone lined up. I mean, I have like some people that I've talked to before maybe, but I don't have anyone lined up for DH. Haven't talked to anyone about Moonkin, but they're easy to find. There's a million of them. Same with Feral. Wait, I asked Kalamaz if he's around. Wait, wrong person. Might be. I meant, J-Funk. Yeah, I always, like, have to find a rogue at the last minute. Warrior, I like to do Crit Cake if he's around, but he's like a normie. He gets off at like a regular ass time. Hunter, I have a guy. Mages are easy to find. I have an arcane mage I would talk to. Yeah, we're gonna do Windwalker now though. Wonder how long my voice is gonna last today. Is public around? Yeah. Alright, I'm calling J-Funk. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, so I tweeted I didn't really like Windwalker as much the other week, and I had some people, I like talked to Trill at the end of one of our damage testing things, and he's like, I actually kind of like Windwalker right now, so maybe I didn't give it enough of a shot, but I am going to ask you how you kind of feel about the gameplay of Windwalker going into this expansion.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what you didn't like about it, but
Well,
I think the gameplay, like forward facing, is very similar to what we had before. Um, but I'll let you talk first. What do you
well,
not like about it?
there's okay. So first of all, context. Played it on a dummy with a talent build someone gave me for 10 minutes, and I like logged off because I hated it so much. But it's possible like talents move around and stuff like that. But like it felt like you were casting Fist of Fury forever. Like it was just extremely low uptime. And then also there was like a build where you just didn't even press Fist of Fury at all. But I believe they nerf Fist of Fury, or they buff Fist of Fury recently to where that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, the latest tuning on Friday is gonna fix that.
Also, they were telling me you don't use Chi procs on spinning crank kick and single target.
I mean, you might. It's just the problem with it's not really a problem, but how Windwalker plays this expansion is you are a Fist of Fury merchant. Like that's how you play it. Especially now after the buffs, like it's insane damage. So you're playing for Fist of Fury resets, Fist of Fury cooldown, and just pressing it as much as possible. So I can see why you wouldn't like playing it. Did you play Shadowpan or Conduit?
Conduit.
Okay. So I thought I did all the raid testing, and I felt like the latest raid testing, I was playing like how you're supposed to play, I guess, in air quotes, and wasn't doing the RSK stuff, and it felt pretty good on like Voracious on single target. Like your burst damage on single target is like with Conduit is insane. It's really high, and it felt mostly smooth with like a lot of heart window uptime, so you're not channeling as long.
Yeah, maybe I was playing a character with just actually negative haste, but does it not feel like Fist of Fury is being, even though it's a ton of damage, does it not feel like it's being channeled for like a hella long time?
So there's a talent that increases the duration by 1 second. So if you're playing
Yeah,
that,
I untalented
that would-
out
that
of
would-
that because of that, and it still felt slow, but maybe I just had like zero haste.
yeah, I mean haste is definitely like the best stat now. So, but we'll talk about this. So, Windwalker, like how it plays is similar to how it played like the beginning of War Within, kind of. There's a big difference. Like SCF is gone, so there's no pet stuff, and now you have to choose between Strike and Willing Dragon Punch, which
Yeah, I didn't
people
that
like and
either.
don't like. How do you feel about Weapons of Order becoming the main cooldown? Because
I mean,
I think
I mean, a small part of me missed the nostalgia of like Storm, Earth, and Fire. It's always been one of my favorite abilities, but it was also super bugged, and I can understand like moving away from it for that reason. But to me, it kind of felt the same. I didn't play it this season, Windwalker this season. I played it in season 1, but like Weapons of Order being the main cooldown felt like you were just in your Storm, Earth, and Fire cooldown window, at least as Conduit. Like it just felt the same. There's just no clones.
yeah, it's just removes the pets. Yeah, I think it's fine as a cooldown by itself. It's kind of lame, but it's still fine. So the main issue, I guess we'll go by the trees. The class tree, I feel like in this expansion is needed a lot more reworks. It kind of stinks. So the two main problems, in my opinion, are Windwalker, or at least Monk, feels squishy because diffuse magic
yeah.
is gone as a defensive. So you have Fort Brew, which is kind of butt, and it only has 1 charge, which a lot of other specs have, or classes have 2 charges of their defensive. And I feel like personally, like Monk as a class needs a utility button. So for context, I played Dev Evoker in Manaforge, and I played Evoker before that. And Evoker has so much utility. Even if we had just like one of the things, a similar like one thing, like a Zephyr or a Time Spiral or something that we could press in raid, that would be nice. Because going from Evoker, where I had like 16 jobs on a fight, to on farm playing Windwalker and having like no job is crazy.
Yeah, it's also kind of a vibe though. Like no one can tell you to do anything. You're just a lone warrior. You know. But yeah, I mean, all you have is like, I guess you have really good ad CC if there's ever like, you know, like Forge Weaver. Like you just have a lot of buttons that are good for that, but that's like a very rare value.
ROP is really good in this next tier. Like on Chimeras, it's really nice to have at least like 2 monks, so you'd have ROP every time for the ads. And then on latest testing for Saladar, ROP was like obscenely good for dealing with the kick ads. So, I think the hero talent stuff is probably the highlight of this rework stuff. I think they did a really good job with all the hero talent stuff, because with Shadowpan now you can play 1 minute cooldown stuff, or you can play 130 or 120 or whatever it is. And then for Conduit, you can actually play 2 minute Conduit, which is sick, and then play 1 minute 130 Conduit as well, which is sick. and I think it's really good.
No, that's really. I mean, think about how your cooldown timings affected how you interacted with last tier, right? Unlike Nexus King and Dimensius, like having the ability to be a minute and a half class, be a 1 minute class, be a 2 minute class based on the fight is actually like so important.
Yeah, it's really nice. The spec talents I feel like are like the worst part. Like the spec tree that we got feels like a first strat. It feels like the natural next step of like the Dragonflight tree, but it feels like a step backwards in my opinion from the War Within tree. I just the big thing for me is like we have 2 passives that were made into talents, which kind of always sucks. But it doesn't matter as much if you have to pick it at the top of the tree. Like sharp reflexes, it's fine. But then combo breaker being a passive for like 10 plus years, and now you have to like talent into it. It feels really weird.
Yeah.
And then the tier 3 talents are all just kind of boring, and there's not a whole lot of build variety. One of the things I liked about the last season of War Within was that like Shadowpan played like the left side of the tree, and then Conduit played the right side of the tree, so it felt very different when you played either one, and they felt both fun. And now it feels like you play the same talent build as either hero talent, kind of. And it just, part of the reason is just the tier 3 talents are kind of not that good, and they're kind of like low impact, low gameplay impacting, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, the monk buff situation is weird. It's not like a buff you want to stack multiple times. And there are other specs of monk that are really strong. Like, how good do you think Windwalker is going to be in raid?
From the raid testing that I did, I actually think monk is going to be really good. I think it's one of the better melees, because in the raid testing that I did, latest one, and I've done all the raid testing, I was doing a lot of single target, and I had a good like priority ad damage. And I was playing with streamers. I was playing with Kalamazoo and all them, so it had to be good because I was near the top.
Yeah, streamers have to be good.
Yeah, so I was blasting, and my burst damage was good. I feel like it'll be really good. The Ring of Peace thing is kind of nice. I don't know. I think it's probably one of the stronger melees in raid, if I had to guess, like damage wise. And it only got buffed from like if the tuning on Friday goes live, like it gained like the bare minimum like 5% single target. So
well, and relative,
it should be better.
The classes that were like really strong also got nerfed by a lot, so like relatively it would be
Yeah.
better. Yeah, and they have Windwalker also, like, you know, their historical damage profile is like they do pretty good stacked cleave, and like with the Fist of Fury stuff that would be good for the raid, right? So they gain a lot from that. So you think it's really good?
I think it's really good. I put top of A. I don't know if I'd go crazy style because I'll get nerfed, but yeah, I think top of A.
Saying you won't go crazy style because it means it'll get nerfed. I mean, I feel like the way you'd look at raid is crazy style outside of tanks and healers are like you are bringing multiple of these because they're so strong. And I think historically, even when monk is good, it's actually really rare that you bring multiple. It's basically happened twice. It happened in Antorus, and it happened in Gallywix raid.
It also depends on the guild too, right? Like you guys stacked it.
How many
but then
people
Echo
even
didn't
have
really stack
multiple
it that much.
Windwalker players, right? It's
Yeah. So I mean, I think you could stack it, but I don't think it's that good. Maybe the damage is going to be really high, but like, I guess I always say this: is it going to be a bad melee tier? Maybe for like depending how the dragon fight works. Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay. So A tier. What about Mythic Plus?
So as a context, I have not done the most beta keys, but what I've seen before these Friday changes, I would have put it in B because it's kind of the AoE was pretty bad. But these changes on Friday buffed their AoE by like an enormous amount of damage. I think at the very least it's like a 15% buff in AoE, but for like Shadowpan it's like 30, 40 or something like that in AoE.
Yeah.
And these changes are also good on Friday because it equalized Conduit and Shadowpan kind of. Before there was a bigger gap, but now they're really close, so you can kind of play either.
Okay.
So I mean, we can't test it obviously on the beta because they aren't there. I was gonna test it, but if I had to guess, like probably similar, like middle of A maybe. I think it'd actually be good. I don't think it'll be a meta pick because the utility aspect, you know, like a fizz comp, a very specific comp for Windwalker to work within the confines. But
yeah, you want a warrior, and then also I think Windwalker, even if Windwalker's like really cranking in AoE, they always fall off to like no uncapped AoE, right? I feel like that's like gonna hurt them in Mythic Plus always.
There's 2 things I want to mention for design stuff.
Yeah.
One, real quick, Spinning Crane Kick needs a redesign because it is bad. One of the reasons why you're just Fist of Fury merchant is like spinning Crane Kick doesn't do anything, and their solution to that so far has been just buff its damage over and over again. But like, it needs to play into like they need to decide if it should be like AOE RSK or something. If it plays into the cooldown reduction loop of Fist of Fury or something, because currently it's on an island and it doesn't do much, so you can't really press it because it doesn't fall into your rotation, I guess. And then the Apex talents. I think the Apex talents are kind of weird because at the beginning of the development cycle, they wanted us to be crit. So they just made all of our Apex talents crit related. But then the first talent, Tiger Eye Brew, functions weird because it's like a timer that scales with haste that goes down. It's weird. But also because it gives you flat crit. It's like Skyreach, kind of, from Dragonflight, where because you have so much flat crit, crit actually is devalued as a stat to get, which is kind of weird.
Sense.
And I just don't think our Apex talents are really that fun or interesting.
Yeah.
But I think that's most of the things I wanted to cover.
Okay. Yeah, sweet.
Okay.
Love you, bye. Yeah. All right, I'm fucking fading, chat. I'm probably gonna do like one more maybe, and then do the rest tomorrow and hope I feel better. Shadow? Yeah, we'll do Shadow. You around, my dude? Havoc time? Man, maybe we can do two. Let me see how I feel about it. Because, like, getting through, like, one spec at a time can sometimes be, like, kind of fast.
Yo.
Yo, what's up?
What's up, man?
Did y'all get pruned at all? Like, how does your class feel to play in Midnight?
Honestly, I think compared to a lot of specs, we did not get hit too much with the pruning bat. If anything, they hit on some good stuff. So Shadow got a few buttons removed that were kind of nice. Like, we didn't need to have them all the time. So, like, we had Halo and Void Torrent for all of our specs, and they just put those behind the hero talents that play them. So that's kind of nice. We also lost our pet abilities, so like the Shadow Fiend or Mindbender actives, those also just became passes in that sense. So at least from like a button perspective, that got removed. But like utility wise, defensive wise, we really didn't get hit, necessarily at all. There's some weirdness with like class tree choices, but honestly, pruning wise, we kind of got for the most part ended up in a good spot. So
okay, and you guys got that one button got tuned again, right?
Oh boy.
Psychic Link?
Yes, this is a problem. I don't know when it's going to be a problem, but it's going to be someone's problem soon. So Psychic Link is at the highest point that it's been a really long time, or maybe ever in this iteration. So what that means is our single target is ass. And so the way they're balancing our AoE is like, oh, because it's based on your single target, we're going to buff Psychic Link to compensate for that. So the reason why this is going to be a problem is when they realize that our single target is really weak right now, if they buff our single target and then they don't nerf Psychic Link, we're going to be disgustingly overpowered again in like Mythic Plus and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they've kind of created themselves a tuning problem, and I don't, it's not necessarily like one mod that they have to fix. They have to like adjust the class thing, and yeah, and you can tell over beta they've been trying to get the right balance, but it's clearly in a really weird state right now. So yeah, and again, Psychic Link is carrying our AoE, right? We really don't have anything else besides that currently. There's no other like AoE really spell in our kit, so it's kind of competing with some Apparition stuff, but yeah, they got to figure out what they want to do with this, man. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I feel like Shadow Priest, especially now that they've made dot classes, like their dots matter a bit more, and I think Psychic Link kind of can be considered like dotting. And they've also designed fights for dot classes to succeed in the middle and later part of this expansion. That was like clearly an emphasis. The reason they used to move away from that, like they moved away from that in the end of I think Eternal Palace, really, like Eternal Palace and
Yeah.
Nyalotha was like the last time that was really strong. You had to they kept nerfing priests and they got rid of dots as a thing because it was just impossible to actually tune.
Yep.
It was like you either are like, if you're good in single target at all, which on some fights dotting doesn't matter, right? You are going to, like, the class is just going to be way too strong anytime you add a second target. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and they basically have this thing, right? Like dots can either be easy to spread or powerful. They can never be both, right? And you kind of have to pick what you want the spec to do, right? And they've been kind of floating between those two ideas a little for the last several patches. But you're right, they definitely have leaned into making dots a bigger part of the kit. They actually made a really fun talent, in my opinion, that choice nodes against misery, that just says, hey, Shadow Word Pain deals like 150% more damage or something. And what that means, because it's a choice node against misery, is we actually care about casting our dots again, and like, keeping uptime of dots is more something you have to think about than before. And like, again, really make Shadow feel more like a dot spec, at least in raiding environments, which I think is really good. The problem is they haven't quite figured out how that works in Mythic Plus with like variable pack sizes, and I think you can tell they're trying to give us a path to be viable in that regard. But kind of your point stands there with like, well, if you're really, really good on 3-4 targets, does that mean you're just busted in Mythic Plus when you can dot 10 or 12?
Yeah.
So they haven't really figured that out, and I think this patch that we actually saw some evidence of them leaning into shadowy apparitions as that gameplay loop, because I think community-wise love seeing Ghost come out of the Shadow Priest. I think it's really fun and really fun to play with. So I think they could lean harder into that to get even more like apparition-focused AoE or things like that. But they'd have to, I don't know, they got to do something with Psychic Link, either choice note it with something else like exploding shadowy apparitions or something, or I don't know. It's just in a weird, I think, kind of unhealthy spot. And in previous expansions, there was an iteration of Psychic Link that was kind of like, oh, you took this on low target cleave, but it was never your mass AoE thing. And I think they could get the balance right if it had a clear identity rather than like propping up the whole spec. So I don't know. It's definitely in an awkward spot right now and a little, precarious situation with tuning, but that's what we're going with for now.
All right, W. Where do you think they end up in raid? Are they the priest buff?
Oof. So again, if you crystal ball this, right, I think they're gonna have to buff our single target because it's one of the worst in the game right now, and it keeps getting nerfed. I don't know. I don't really know what they're looking at. So if you assume they're gonna fix that problem, I think we'll be in kind of like a B tier situation, if not, again, depending on how they do the tuning with Psychic Link, right? Basically, as it stands right now, any fight that has ads, we should do really, really well with, assuming they live long enough. I don't think there was as much like damage modifiers that we could kind of abuse like we could in this last tier. So, pending tuning, I think they'll be in an okay state in raid. We have less choices now, which is going to be a little frustrating for people. They actually kind of nailed it in the War Within with hero talent balance. We kind of played both hero talent trees in almost every raid, which is kind of impressive because I don't know how many specs ended up in that situation.
I don't think that's true of like anyone else.
Yeah, so like on that, and it was very much like, oh, on this fight we like this play style, we're gonna play Archon. This fight we like this play style for cooldown timings or whatever, we're gonna play Void Weaver. They've kind of gutted Archon in Void form enough to where I don't think we're gonna have that same thing anymore, which is really a shame. The thing that made Archon good is just not a thing anymore. Like there's no like really long Void forms anymore, and there's really no identity with that hero talent. So I'm a little worried about that because I think that was really helping us in the War Within because we had a lot more like flexibility in how we play. So I think that's going to pull us down a little bit. So if anything, I especially looking at where some of the stuff is placed right now, I think current tuning, Shadow's definitely like high C, low B if you assume maybe they fixed tuning, at least in raids for that reason.
I think you can rank it for where it is now, and we'll just update this with changes.
Yeah, so yeah, I would go high C. Again, they can fix it, but it's just in such a, I don't know. They're definitely they're doing some weird stuff with tuning. Like our Apex talents in our tier set revolves around shadowy apparitions, but then they just nerfed the shit out of shadowy apparitions baseline to like quote unquote compensate for that. So our tuning is giga dependent on them figuring that out, and right now it's just it's not great in single target. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. What about Mythic Plus?
So again, I think if you kind of follow this through, we have an insane cleave with Psychic Link right now, and our dots are powerful. Like they've, especially with Void Weaver, there's a lot of things that are buffing our Shadowward Pain, Vampiric Touch in particular. So even though being able to spread dots isn't necessarily easier, and Tentacle Slam is kind of weird. It has some issues that make it awkward, but I think in that, because dots are powerful, I think it's actually gonna be in a pretty good spot for a lot of people. At least, it definitely in like kind of more, not like super high push keys, but like not weekly keys. I don't know, in that kind of middle realm, I think it's gonna do really, really well still. So I would put it, firmly in B tier with how things stand currently. Especially kind of expecting like with shadowy apparitions and kind of the longer stuff lasts, the better we'll do. So, might be a little awkwardness in lower keys, but I think they gave us enough kind of levers to kind of make that work if people like the dot play style. So
All right, sweet. Did you hear my dogs barking in the middle of that, by the way?
yeah, I mean, it happens.
Okay, yeah. Dude, I sometimes
piss 'em off?
Discord like blocks it out. I know my stream did. Oh, there he goes again. All right, cool. Actually, wait. How do you feel defensively?
So so they made silence and dispersion baseline for utility, which is good. Dispersion is still on the GCD, which just feels kind of eh. So assuming that you can react properly and press dispersion, it's still a really good defensive. So I think in that regard, we're okay. And they kept most of our defenses from the War Within, right? So we still have our kind of main spender heals us, and then we get a shield from that. It's not quite as strong as it was in the War Within after the kind of tuning balance, but we are still doing a good chunk of self-healing. So that part's good. And we still have access to Fade being a defensive and Flash Heal being a defensive in our class tree. So we basically have, an on-demand, more or less, 20% DR, if you can plan for it, every 20 seconds.
How long
So in that
does it
regard, I
last?
think Shadow's actually in a pretty dang good spot from what that stands for. Now,
How
we
long
can't
does that
move for
last?
shit, so, there's that. But yeah.
How long does the DR last?
10 seconds?
Oh, wait. It
10,
lasts
15?
10 seconds, and it's a 20-second
20%?
ICD, and it's a 20% DR?
Yeah, bud.
Yeah,
Well, Flash Shield doesn't have a cooldown, so you can do that. You can have infinite uptime on 10%. But then Fade has a 20-second cooldown. with
yeah, that's
talents,
like,
so.
I could see, like, that sounds really good, and in a certain scenario it is really good, but it's kind of like when people are like, Moonkins can just go in bear form, but, like, obviously you just can't on
Yeah.
hard fights, because, like, you're just AFK, right? So,
So, I mean, we have, Fade is 10%, which is still something, and we can press it often. So, like, for rotting damage, we're still in a good spot. And we have Dispersion if we have to, but, we can't, it's like Turtle, right? Like, we can't do anything when we're in Dispersion, and it's not really a true immunity. So, I don't know. I think looking at the gambit of other cloth DPS, I think we actually ended up in a pretty okay spot, with the caveat being, we can't really move out of stuff very easily. So, there's that.
all right, sweet, love you, bye. Owned. I think I am gonna do one more person, but I need to, like, go get some water real quick. We have a few people available. I don't think I can do a triple spec class, honestly, even though this guy's been kind of waiting. Yeah, it's like maybe DH, or I can do Arcane Mage, actually, with Porom, maybe. I don't know. I'll be right back. All right, share stream over. Oh, who do we got? Oh, dude, during that public talk, I felt like I did really well. I was trying to maintain being engaged in conversation while also machine gun banning a bot spam of slurs in my YouTube chat. I eventually just turned chat off because I didn't even know how to fucking do that. But I thought that went pretty well, all things considered. What does crazy style mean? Crazy style is good. Midnight default UI is obviously really bad. Okay. I think we do the rest tomorrow. I'm fucking cooked, bro. I can like barely keep my eyes open. I think I did enough work today. Got enough of these done. I'm fucking cooked, dude. Yeah. All right. See you guys tomorrow.